There are some things in life that were just destined to go together. Fish and chips, Ant and Dec, Doctor Who fans and disappointment. And I would say that theories and Reddit leaks are one of those things. Now, I have tried very hard to stay away from Reddit because I didn't want that to be all this channel did, but no matter how hard I try, it just pulls me back in. And today's leak is a special one because it at least claims to be from someone with an incredibly good track record. I say claims to be because it's difficult to know for certain. However, I wanted to cover this because I saw a lot of people talking about this. I've seen people comment on my YouTube shorts asking me about this leak or this supposed Reddit leak and stuff, and I've seen TikToks of it doing the rounds as well. So I'm gonna be giving you my thoughts because that's what I do on this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you're new, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're doing regular Doctor Who content here on the channel, and we're going to be covering lots of stuff going forward, including the new spin-off as well. And I just want to make a quick public service announcement. We are just over 200 subscribers away. We're on 29,798 last time I checked. So if all you guys banded together and subscribed, we could get there before Christmas, and it would mean the world to me. I'm so grateful for all the support you guys continue to give me. I also want to say that we're still sponsored by the eBay store Customates. So in the Christmas season, if you want to get any of your Doctor Who merchandise or cosplay items, they've got a range up there and it's growing as well. So check that out, link in the description below if you're interested. But with that said, let's dive right in. So this is the rumour that I saw, or basically the leak I saw on Reddit. It's on the r/Gallifrey subreddit, and apparently I'm banned. I did not know this. I did not know I was banned from r/Gallifrey. I'm sorry if I did anything wrong. I don't think I remember even posting onto here, but I'm sorry. Okay, anyway. But yeah, the reason why I wanted to cover this leak is because it purports to be, at least allegedly, from Andrew. Now, Andrew's a bit of a infamous name in the Doctor Who fandom, at least over the last year or so, because he was the person who basically leaked everything with regards to season 2 in particular, including, I believe, the Midnight Entity in The Well was him, among other things. But most famously, he predicted 100% accurately the Billy Piper twist at the end of the Reality War. Now, I do have some kind of skepticism with this leak because as far as I was aware, he was mainly accurate because he had access to the edits of these stories, as far as I understood it. So that's why he could predict them with such accuracy, because he'd seen the edits of them. Whereas in this case, what we're going to be talking about, which is Christmas 2026, no such edits of this story exist yet because it hasn't been filmed. But I will be adjusting my skepticism, and we're going to be reading this anyway. But I wanted to say that the reason I'm covering this in particular is because it purports to be from Andrew, who I've covered before, who would just bang on about everything. So, I think it's fair to say that if someone says that they're Andrew, I'm at least gonna, have a slight bit of interest in what this is, especially because what it purports anyway. So with all that preamble out the way, Andrew returns with XMAS 2026, spoilers, possibly. Andrew, the person who leaked all of the season 2 details correctly, has supposedly returned with info on the Xmas special. I say supposedly, as there have been a few imitators pretending to be him since then too, so adjust your skepticism level as required. Yeah, I have seen this as a thing, people just saying that they are Andrew, so again, adjust speculation accordingly, but let's have a look. The episode is basically a Marvel what-if type story. What if we made the last ever episode, but time will be rewound at the end, back to the regeneration, and depending on the situation by Christmas next year, either we get the real next Doctor or something more open-ended. Carol Ann Ford will have a big role in the episode, just not the one she was originally planned to have. While the broad strokes of the script are in place, the details are in flux, no pun intended, as they are basically trying to pull in all their favours in terms of who they can get to appear in it. They're hoping for everyone bar Eccleston and Capaldi, but until they get firm commitments, it's more of a case of generic Doctor and generic companion appear this point in the story. Shooting is planned for February-March, and it should be closer to 90 minutes than 60. Okay, that's a pretty huge deal if this turns out to be true. Obviously, again, as always, I'm exercising a level of skepticism, and you guys should too. Don't take any of these as oh yeah, this is 100% happening. Take this as rumor and speculation, because that's what it is. However, talking about this conceptually, it does kind of line up for me. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, I reckon this is going to be Russell T Davis's last episode. That's not said in this leak, but I think it's something that we can infer from the fact that, BBC have said that he agreed to write another episode, etc., etc. So, given that Russell probably knows that this era hasn't exactly gone over the way that he probably wanted it to with the fan base, what better way than to attempt to get the fans back on side by basically making one big final, epic story to finish everything off, at least in the mind of Russell T Davis. Obviously, the execution of that could vary wildly, and it could just end up being all, fan wank with no substance. However, from a purely, marketing perspective and from, a what can I do to get the fans back on board perspective, the idea of doing an all-out, multi-doctor, big, epic final episode would make sense. I mean, obviously, it says here as well, it's kind of being marketed as, what if we made the last ever episode, which could lend credence to the theory that people were posing, and I talked about in a previous video, where there was a Bad Wolf company called TLD, which was The Last Doctor. So if that was true, if that is what that company is supposed to represent, then that would make this make sense. Basically, this is him going, if I had to finish Doctor Who, this is how I would do it, in much the same way that Power of the Doctor was originally intended to kind of be, well, if no one takes over, this can kind of be a bookend to Doctor Who for the time being. Obviously, it says that Carol Ann Ford will have a big role in the episode, just not the one she was originally planned to have. If that is true, which I hope it is, we would be very glad of that. I think it would be terrible to get Carol Ann Ford in to do all of that, get her all excited to be back in the show, and then bin it all off. Maybe don't do the thing that they were originally going to do, where Poppy turns out to be her mother or something, because let's be honest, even though some people would have preferred that to the Billie Piper thing, it still wasn't overly warmly received by the fan base, and I think that it would just cause more confusion, and I don't think anyone would be particularly keen for that at this point. But the idea of, having basically every Doctor or companion that they can get in this is kind of interesting. Obviously, right now, they don't have written commitments, but this would line up with several rumours we've been hearing about, potentially McGann, potentially, being involved in some things in the near future, visiting Bad Wolf Studios, obviously interviews with Billie Piper and David Tennant, where they both look kind of very skeptical at each other, and the recent return of Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill back into kind of the Who fold with their upcoming Doctor Who podcast, which is going to have Doctor Who related guests. All these kind of things, when you put them together, do kind of create this sense of, okay, if we're going to do, basically, the new Who equivalent of Power of the Doctor, now is probably the best time you're going to get. I think both Eccleston and Capaldi are basically no-goes, unfortunately. Eccleston especially, given that this will be a Russell T Davis thing, despite the fact that he has actually said that he wanted Billie Piper to play the Doctor, which is something that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I still don't think if it's under this team, you've got a hope in hell of seeing Eccleston in an episode. But Tennant, Smith, Whittaker, possibly even Gatwa, alongside, Billie Piper, and potentially a new Doctor, depending on where we are in 2026 with, what the BBC decides to do with it in the future, is interesting. The other thing that I would be relieved by is the idea of it being closer to 90 minutes rather than 60. If you're going to do a story like this with all these different characters and elements, then I think 90 is the minimum. And February and March does line up with the rumoured filming dates that we've been hearing as well, especially with regards to Radio Free Skaro, where they say that the original contract for Bad Wolf to make the show expires around, I think they said April. So filming around February, March makes sense. Now, it's important to say with a lot of these kind of supposed leaks that a lot of them do tend to do this thing where they will put together quite, popular rumours or, bits of information and kind of collate them into something that sounds vaguely plausible. So that could be happening here. But also, I'm not going to be surprised if this next episode is full of, cameos. Even if, they don't get every Doctor that they want to in it, I still think Tennant is likely a shoo-in anyway. I'd love to see, the Smith lot back. I've said that for ages. I think it's about time we got some 11th Doctor representation. No, Capaldi would be a shame, but he has said he is finished with the character and was happy with where he left him, and I respect that, as an actor. If you feel done with that character, then you shouldn't be forced to coming back into the fold. essentially. And then the idea of maybe getting Gatwa back as well to have some kind of role, even if it was just slightly, even if they just had like a 5-minute flashback where he got to fight some Daleks, I think that would make him leaving so early feel a little bit better, because at least then he got to face one of the big three, in kind of a similar way to how I've spoken about before, where John Pertwee got to fight, you know, the Cybermen and the Five Doctors. If we got something like that, I think at least it would feel a bit better. It would still be sad that, you know, Gatwa left so prematurely before I think we really got, you know, to sort of explore his Doctor. But ultimately, it is what it is. But yeah, interesting. There is obviously the concern that this just becomes one big giant, like, you know, incomprehensible mess. But then equally, at the same time, I've said this before, but whatever this episode turns out to be, is probably not going to be representative of what the show ultimately ends up doing after it. In the sense that I don't think that we are going to be getting more episodes with, like, the Billie Piper Doctor. I know some people think that they might be, and I've seen other leaks suggesting that maybe she will, and maybe I'll cover them in a different video. But from what I think, I doubt Billie Piper will stay very long. She's even said herself, like, she wouldn't want to move back down to Cardiff long-term for it, you know, when asked if she would come back. So I just don't personally see that, personally. Plus, she's got a big career in her own right, and I just don't see her tying herself down to Doctor Who for another, you know, 2, 3, 5 years, however long she would be on it. But let me know what you guys think of this leak. Obviously, I've seen it doing the rounds, and if there's any other leaks you want to see me cover in the future, let me know in the comments below. That'd be greatly appreciated. Please like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.